pecuniary interest.
Stream hasn't started.
Might be better if it doesn't.
That's good. Right. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so I've just called for any pecuniary conflicts of interest.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to declare a pecuniary interest in item 8.5, Development Application 2017-32, Corowa Car Wash.
Thanks, Councillor Whitechurch.
And the purpose of the pecuniary interest is I actually work with one of the applicants for the development application.
Thanks, Councillor Whitechurch. Would there be any other interest to declare? If not, we'll move on. Confirmation of minutes of the last meeting. Would someone like to confirm those minutes? Confirmed by Councillor Meagle, seconded by Councillor Law. Any comments? If not, I'll put it. All in favour? I'm sorry, Councillor Thomas, did you want to make a comment?
Well, I was a little unsure about where I wanted to make my comment, but I can do it now.
That's fine.
I just wanted to give feedback to our council. I've had feedback from the Lonsdale Recreation Reserve, and they said that it was a very positive meeting with our two members, one being our general manager and one being an employee who attended that meeting, and I'd like to thank you for attending that meeting. They've got clarification now, and they're feeling like they're moving forward, so thank you.
Very good, Councillor Thomas. Always good to have a good report. Okay, so there I'll put it. All in favour? Against? Carried. Merrill minute. Just got a couple of new items to bring into the Merrill minute. It'll be a new motion that would like to put in relation to the Howlong compost facility, a motion for a bit of clarification, and that motion would read at this stage that Council confirms its decision that it will not lease land in Howlong for the purpose of a compost facility. Okay, so we've got that motion on the board. Okay, can I have a move for the motion to discuss? Moved by Councillor Law, seconded by Councillor Kennedy. Any questions or comments? Once we have that motion up, I'll put it.
Perhaps I could make a comment. I just feel that this is a good thing, just to enforce our belief in what we are doing is correct, and to ensure the community that this is what we really want to do.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Law. And just to add to that, yeah, I think you're exactly right, and we're just trying to confirm Council's position against that compost facility, to give them some confidence. We're tied by a lot of legal privileges, and unfortunately all the information is not available for the public, but it is our strong position to not support that facility. Thank you. Okay. Well, councillors, our typist is not quite up to speed this morning. Yeah. But anyway, that's the, if you're comfortable, I'll put it, councillors. Okay. All in favour? Against? It's carried. The next item on the Merrill minute is that the future council meetings commence, after much discussion this morning, that future council meetings commence 9:30 AM in lieu of 10 AM. Meetings to continue to be held on a Tuesday. That was the general opinion. Can we have a mover for that motion, please? Moved by Councillor Thomas, seconded by Councillor Meagle. Any comments at all? If not, I'll put it. Councillor
Meagle.
Whitechurch, did you have a comment on that? I'm sorry.
No, you're right.
No, you're right. Okay. All in favour? Against? Carried. The third one, the last item on that Merrill minute, has just come up this morning too, which you're unaware of, councillors. And I'd ask the Director of Planning, once he comes back, he might be able to give a bit more clarification. It's an item that, like, you feel comfortable with. It's a bitumen reselling program. Now, there's a contract and it's been out for quotation information. And Peter, I'm just brought up on the bitumen sealing program. Would you give the council a bit of clarification on that process that you've undertaken, and they can make a decision whether they're comfortable to move on with that one?
Okay, through you, Mr. Mayor. The bitumen sealing program, or resealing program, has been through our normal process. The expectation was it was worth more than $150,000, in the vicinity of 1.2 to 1.5 million. As such, we went through the standard tender process, advertising 21 days, and received, from that process, we received, I think it was, 6 applications for it. We've undertaken the evaluation process, based on the weightings, etc. we have there for each of the companies, and that's led us to our conclusion of the ranking in the second page of that report. Standard process, there's been nothing in there that we can't show up, but we've actually taken out confidential information that we don't normally put in an open council. So recommendation stands there that we award to Men's Plant for approximately $1.36 million. Thank you.
I'll just ask the General Manager to shed a little bit more light before I ask whether you'd like to share this one.
Firstly, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to say to the Council that it will be not my intention to have reports raised as urgent business in this way very often, unless it is absolutely urgent. When this matter was put before me, my initial reaction was no, it's not coming to this Council meeting, we have it in the Council, it can go to the meeting in a month. The difficulty is a couple of things. One is that the Council's staff in the engineering department I mentioned earlier, a full restructure and new position descriptions and so on. We've got approximately, Mr. Director, about a $23 million works program to deliver, and it was put to me that if we don't get moving with this, what will happen is potentially we'll be in this sort of position, not as bad, but where we finish up with the successful tenderers doing reseal programs in suboptimal conditions. And what happened last year was that the contractor that did the work didn't deliver in terms of the expectations. We got the tenders out late because of the restructure and staffing vacancies and so on and so forth. And we finished up cancelling half of the tender throughout the year and not continuing through with it because the quality of the work, the timing of the year, and so on, we were just very uncomfortable that we weren't using money well. For those of you who are out and about on some of our sealed road network, you will see some substandard work. The lowest tenderer in this particular case isn't the tender being recommended to you. The lowest tenderer was $200,000 less, and it was the tenderer from last year. The council staff, looking at the weighting, couldn't, in all consciousness, recommend a contractor that had not performed in last year. And so it's one of those things with council staff. We hate to spend $1 more than we had to. But we've been at senior level encouraging the staff to get the best value for money purchase rather than the cheapest purchase, because the cheapest purchase last year turned out to be a very ineffective purchase, and we're fighting for compensation, repeat of the work and so on and so forth. So I'm very confident about the recommendation to you. All the processes are fine, but the prospect of putting urgent business on the council meeting without proper notice, in my view, is a substandard process. So I asked the Mayor how he felt about that, and he felt comfortable bringing it forward. I'm grateful that he did, but it's not something that you'll see very often at all.
Okay, then we have it, councillors. I'll first of all get someone to move the motion to discuss. Moved by Councillor Conway, seconded by Councillor Law. Questions or comments, councillors? Councillor Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yep. Take General Manager's comments on board, because it's not the way that to have the information dropped on us like that. So appreciate that that's not going to be the regular process. Other than that, always also take on board his comments about the fact that the cheapest is not always the best way to go, that it's much rather do it properly and do it once rather than have to go back and keep fixing it up. So happy with the motion. Thank you.
Anyone else like to comment? If not, I'll put it. All in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, would someone like to move the mayoral minute for me, please? Moved by Councillor Wales, seconded by Councillor Law. Questions or comments? If not, I'll put it. All in favour? Against? Carried. I'll now ask the General Manager to give his report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Councillors, through you, Mr Mayor, the first item really details the implementation of building the new organisation is continuing. There's a great deal of terrific work going on. I won't speak any further. That's just really for information, Mr Mayor, unless there are questions.
Thank you. No questions, councillors? Yeah. Okay, councillors, we will move the motion tonight, so would someone like to move that? Moved by Councillor Kennedy, seconded by Councillor Neagle. If there's any questions or comments on that, we'll put it all in favour. Against? Carried.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Item 5.2 is written as part of the compliance process with respect to the $10 million that the government made available for funding. There's a requirement to put in front of council a quarterly report. So you will see this each quarter. You'll get to think that it's a fair bit repetitive, but it's a great opportunity for the new council just to reflect on the number of really exciting projects that are being delivered, and to credit to the community in many cases, and to the staff, but to the community, that they're working through many of these projects. And the feedback that I'm sure many of you are getting is that they're pretty excited about whether it be the kitchens or the hall roofs or the carpet or the watering system or the tennis court fencing and so on and so forth right across the council area. And you can see that most of those projects are on track or delivered. There's a couple of examples where the enthusiasm in very small towns hasn't matched the resource level, so we will actually, as a council, I'm sure, stand behind some of those smaller communities to help them deliver on a couple of projects. But generally, I think the council will be impressed with the work that's being done out in the community through this funding.
Another motion to note there, councillors. Would someone like to move, please? To note the report, moved by Councillor Thomas, seconded by Councillor Kennedy. If no questions or comments, I'll put it. The question, Councillor Thomas.
Reading through the figures, I just need clarification. The Oaklands Medical Centre, you've got 87,173, and I was under the assumption from some other figures that it should be 346,942. Sorry, it's just a technical hitch, but
through you, Mr Mayor, I can't reconcile those figures right this minute.
Yeah.
The situation with the Oaklands Medical Centre is that originally the proprietor of the medical services there was going to be owning a facility, and we were going to be providing a whole range of support. It's only a typo, the mayor's fixed that problem for me. We'll fix that in a minute. But just an update on where that's up to. The council at the time felt, so the administrator I suppose, but felt that it was based on a recommendation that it would be preferable for the council to own those facilities, notwithstanding it was going to cost the council more. And the reason for that was the purpose of council supporting the doctor is quite clear, to make sure that there are medical services out in the rural area. And it was felt that at some point in time the doctor will leave. There's no intention at all in the short, medium or whatever. That's not afoot. He intends to be there for a long time. But the idea was to make it as easy as possible for a future doctor to come. And so if council owns it, there's no capital required for a new doctor to come. So the amount of money in the grant is substantially more than it will actually need to be by the time we work through all the details. We're close to finalising that, and I expect to bring that back to the next council meeting for full completion.
Thank you. Councillor Law.
Yeah, just a comment. How long, I believe, been shortchanged for 20% of the population. We've got 3% of the value of the money. I'd just like everyone to, just a comment.
Please, Councillor Law. Would there be
Mayor, item 5.3 is a retrospective process. At the end of the council table up there is all of the pecuniary interest returns for the period 36-16. So this time next year, your individual pecuniary interest returns for this period will be formally tabled, just so that everyone's, it's a due process position to make sure that everyone's tabled their pecuniary interest returns. So it's a sort of due diligence process.
There's a recommendation there, councillors. Would someone like to move it? Moved by Councillor Neal, seconded by Councillor Law. Any comments? I'll put it all in favour. Against, carried. Okay. So now I'll ask the General Manager to deliver the Director of Corporate and Community Services report, please.
Mr Mayor, Ms Kay is one of those people that is devastated to miss a council meeting. I think it's her first council meeting she's missed in 12 years or something like that. So she's at a close friend's funeral this morning. Through you, Mr Mayor, the council last year opened, so Federation Council's been in 16 months, so what happened to Cora is irrelevant. The council opened its offices last year. We were reasonably busy in the RMS space. So I reluctantly support this recommendation on the basis that there will be some disruption to the community in terms of not having that office open. But the other side of that is that the staff have been working very significant hours, and I think that them all having a little break is a useful idea. But more importantly, we're doing a major upgrade of our, not an upgrade of the software, that's all occurred, but we're doing a major upgrade of our computer infrastructure, our server configurations and so on. So the closure of the office actually allows that to occur. The next opportunity to do that upgrade will be over the Easter break. So given that a number of issues, the Urana Council, having said that the previous councils remain interesting but not particularly relevant, the Urana Council always closed, the former Cora always closed. Last year was the first time. My intention would be to recommend to council next year that we do open from now on. But for the purposes of getting that computer work done, I think it's one of those things that needs 2 or 3 days. It's either over Easter or during this break. So given the year that the staff have had in time, I recommend it to you.
Councillor Neal.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a question for the General Manager. There's no way that we can, with RMS being the service that was most utilised during that period, there's no way we can just open the RMS with the only query.
So a really good question through you, Mr Mayor. The experience from a work health and safety point of view is when the office is open and not fully manned, the behaviours and the expectations are really, really difficult. We had a restricted service the year before last when I came in, and the person in the tourism, because the Tourism Information Centre was open, and I said, what sort of day, how are you going, Merry Christmas, and how's your day going? And the member of staff indicated that they were having one of the worst days of their life because they were being abused all day, non-stop. So if we're opening, then the whole organisation needs to open so that there is backroom support, the computer systems are working, and so on and so forth. So it's true that we could open just the RMS office, but if we're going to open the RMS office, I'd be wanting, from a work health and safety point of view, to provide a full service rather than a part service, because the abuse and so on, is really quite horrific, unfortunately.
Councillor Law.
I would just like to note my disappointment that the Visitor Information Service will be closed for so many days.
Through Mr Mayor, it'll only be closed if the council agrees to it. It's not something that you have to do.
Any further comments? Councillor Roger.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I'd like to echo Councillor Law's comments in the fact that it is a very busy time of the year and people are looking for direction. Whilst I do appreciate the General Manager's comments regarding staffing issues, I think maybe that's something that we really do need to look at, because we've got the most people in the town at that time, and they're looking for something, looking for guidance, and it's interesting to hear that the comments that the staff were getting were abusive. Yes, we don't like abusive comments, but there must have been a reason for them. Would that snowball if they didn't have someone to come and cry on? I'm not saying that we've got to have a point of contact, I believe, so maybe we do need to look at that.
Councillor Thomas.
Can I make a suggestion? Would there be an opportunity for tourism to have a pop-up store somewhere? Not necessarily within this building over that period. I know it's probably short notice to organise, but I mean there is that potential. I'm sure there's shop fronts down the main street or somewhere else in the vicinity that you can have a pop-up type of arrangement for those days.
Councillors, I was thinking after the comments, it's probably an item that we need to further discuss and have it on the agenda for next week. So you could all have give it some thought and come back, report back to the General Manager for another agenda. Happy with that? Okay. So it's for Councillors' information. Just a motion to note, moved by Councillor Whitechurch, seconded by Councillor Law. Would you like a motion? Oh, fair enough. Yeah, no, we'll move a motion with that intent to bring it back to get more informed and more discussion around that and have it on the agenda next week. So, excuse me, would someone like to move a motion around that? Yep. Thank you, Councillor Whitechurch, seconded by Councillor Law. Any comments? If not, I'll put it all in favour. Aye. Against? Carried.
Through you, Mr Mayor, items 6.2 and 6.3 for information. Unless there are questions, it would be appropriate for Council to resolve to note those two items.
Any questions, councillors? Okay. Would someone like to move to note? Moved by Councillor Kennedy, seconded by Councillor Neagle. Any comments? If not, all in favour? Against? Carried.
Through you, Mr Mayor, item 6.4, the Australia Day Awards. The local representative committee, when it was considering Australia Day Awards last year, in fact I think it may have even been a suggestion of yours, Mr Mayor, suggested that the council ought rotate those Australia Day activities around the council area, and the suggestion at that time, which the administrator adopted, was to hold those, the first one of those in Urana, and that was an attempt to make sure that every possible endeavour was made to make sure that the smaller communities could be engaged. And then it was suggested that the rotation would be Urana, through the three larger towns, and then out to Urana in the fourth year. Part of I believe the recognition of that was that the Urana community had held a very significant event 3 or 4 years before, and they had the capacity and the systems and processes in place to actually facilitate a fairly major event. I was unable to make it, but the feedback I had was it was a very significantly successful event, and the Urana community did most of the work with some solid support from the staff, but they ran the event. I should have said when we were talking last meeting about the Rowers Park and the alcohol issues, and Councillor Whitechurch made a suggestion around having some sort of event. I should have been quick enough to say that there was an intention, should the council proceed, to have that event in Corowa this year, and so that would work in. The task is to get some community support to help run the event, because it would be, in my opinion, a shame if the events in Corowa were run by the staff and the events in other places were run by the community. So we've got a part-time events officer to help, and we've got resources to help, but we'll need to work up a program and seek some community support to run a very professional event. Recommendations in Corowa, and then the second part of the recommendation talks about running the awards processes and the community leader awards and so on, as detailed in the report.
Okay, would someone like to move that recommendation? Councillor, moved by Councillor Law, seconded by Councillor Thomas. Any questions or comments on those, councillors? Councillor Thomas.
So I out of courtesy, I touched base with the Morwell Progress Association because they wanted to know what you had envisaged for Australia Day as an amalgamated council, and they were very pleased to hear that Morwell will be allocated in 2019. I thought it was a great idea. And then I discussed with them that if that was to go ahead, just wanted to clarify the budget. They had $7,000. That's per, yes, I went to inquire at 7,000 pounds. Yeah, that's fine. So that's fine. The other comment that was made was, you know, for your smaller districts who might still want to continue to have, you know, the breakfast or the lunch, or is there any funds available for them, you know, $200 for the sausage barbecue, or how do they go about accessing that particular funding to council? And the other point of call was with the, I've read through your nomination process, which I think is fabulous, and some of the ideas there are really good, who, with the judging panel for that, and we thought that another idea would be to have, with your 4 councillors, make sure they're from, obviously from each represented area.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, Mr Mayor, I'm not fully equipped to answer the question about the smaller communities, but my recommendation, and it's not in this report, what happened last year is there was a recognition to have a big event to try and get the community together in a more broad way, so that the Citizen of the Year could be presented to the community in a big way, if you like, with lots of people, and to get people, the council saw a benefit in many people from different areas for community engagement purposes, but also people running into each other that might do business together or could do business together. What also happened was that there was also a solid acknowledgement that people want to do their own things in their own communities, and so what the council hoped would happen would be that those other events might be scheduled in the morning, and so that the big event people could still attend to something in their own local community, and then when they finish that, they could still come. They wouldn't overlap. So I think the intent would be the same as last year, but I will send an email out to the council, if that's okay, Mr Mayor, just clarifying that that's the intention.
Councillor Longmore.
Just a comment to enlighten Councillor Thomas's asking of the smaller communities. I think there's a community fund available with that's allocated twice a year. Mr General Manager, you might be aware of that one. I think if there's a group that's able to support an Australia Day event at their own community, they keep the receipts and then they apply for that option to reinstate it. I think that's how it works.
Through you, Mr Mayor, there's certainly a community grants program for all sorts of community activities, and throughout the year staff receive lots and lots of requests. Every second week there's a request for it, and we refer them to the community grants process rather than bring them up so that the council doesn't have to deal with them ad hoc. With respect to the Australia Day celebrations, I'd have to take the question on notice. I think, Councillor Longmire, that my recollection is that we treat that little component as part of the Australia Day activities now, but that the community grants process, you're actually absolutely spot on. And in the past, you know, the council, in terms of the committee for the community grants, has been councillors. In the case of the Australia Day Awards, I think it is important that we have councillors from across the area, but it's also important to have community members. In the past, I think we've included former Citizens of the Year on there, so that you know, sometimes we get reported back, I've been nominated as Citizen of the Year and I was really proud and I've never heard from you ever again. So I think there's an opportunity to think about that engagement with our Citizens of the Year, include them in the next year's judging as an example, and whether there are functions we ought during the year invite them to. So having a look at that process as well.
Any further comments, Councillor?
Mr Mayor, and this has been an idea of mine over a little bit of time, and I'm just thinking that this might be an opportunity to bring it up. And that was, we have the community grants and we have different grants available for tourism. Just wondering whether it's something that the council could look at as suggesting an event and using some of that event or grant money and going to the community and saying the council is putting up, and I'll just use a figure, $5,000 for the purpose of running an Australia Day event, and we're taking applications from interested parties. So that we actually say this is the event we want run. If you're an interested non-profit organisation, football club, Lions club, whoever, you clarification of how you're going to run the event. We have a look at it and then go, okay, we think that group are good enough to go and run our event that we want to run. Sort of glass half full, glass half empty, I guess. Put it back to them and say that, rather than them come to us and say, oh, we want to put an event on, or we do it, use some of our grant money, but allocate it as the event's there to run, as an idea.
And would the thought be, community group in each community, change the communities each year so that it does...
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I was actually only thinking of the town that was running the main event at this point, but of course it was open for discussion. I thought that perhaps, as Councillor Thomas has suggested, Mulwala are already excited that they've got the 2019. This would obviously be the first one if that was the way we decided to go, and I just think that it may give a bit of a spur and get a group involved and make the event sort of already part of the community.
Excellent. Was there any other comments? I did know someone over this side comment. Okay. If there's no further, I'll put it all in favour. Against, carried.
Mr Mayor, I will take the opportunity to list that community grant program and how we go about it, because at a future forum with the council, I think there's some really good ideas. A lot of councils, so our process at the moment has been, we've got some money, applied, the committee makes a recommendation to council, decisions made. There is an opportunity for the council to put a little bit more direction behind that. So for, one of the, I think, unintended consequences of the former process I just described is that you'll often see, and the RSLs will say, that when they look at their grants and they look backwards, they've got the same groups picking up the same money, and they ask themselves a question, why do we have a grants program? This is recurrent expenditure. So there's this issue of new initiatives trying to get developed. How do they break through the old ones? So there could, some councils go, well, this year's program, half of it's going to be used for, say, environmental purposes. Next year it might be for something, you know, school education or for... So we can just have a talk about how the council would like to shape that, and we can brainstorm that, but then the council staff can bring back the results of your work and see what the council itself wants to do with that work. So item 6.5, Ms Kay would shoot me if I didn't say that we ought to be a little bit nervous about this really exciting proposal. The council's overall financial position is not weak, we're not broke, we shouldn't panic, but it's not strong. We're one of the lowest rating councils in New South Wales. We're in the middle of working out our asset backlog, so what capital works and so on we need to pick up on. And there are demands right across the council area for work that we can't do because we don't have the money. So every time we do something new, we compromise the ability to repair and fix something we already own. What that's looked like for the council combined is that our assets are deteriorating in condition consistently, and the second tension is we've got some growth. So towns like Mulwala and Howlong in particular need new facilities to support the new communities that move in. Councillor Longman correctly pointed out that Howlong was certainly I don't particularly subscribe to the idea of towns competing against each other, but if we want to go down that path, Howlong was the town that missed out on the community grants by a long way. As a result of that, in the next round of grants, there's a recommendation for a preschool for $500,000 coming out of the next proposal. So the officers try to make sure that the needs are the first priority and there's some equity as the second thing. This particular project has been on the council's books for many years, and what it is, you've read, I'm sure, in the report, the detail of some master planning that's been done for a long period of time in Corowa around the foreshore. Some of that work's been implemented, some of it hasn't. There's also the Mulwala foreshore master plan, and the council had been working for between 8 and 10 years. Councillor Longmire might be Councillor Law might be in a position to look at the issue of a bike path between Corowa and Mulwala. We talked earlier today about the Tourism Information Centre and when it's open and the impact of people wanting to go. That's really important, but the critical thing for our community in the wider sense is we don't have significant tourism product compared to our competition. We have some, we've got friendly people, we've got sporting facilities, we're on the river, but so does everyone else along the river have the same things. So that our competitive advantage is Lake Mulwala itself. That's critical. The The second thing we have in Corowa is a lot of accommodation, and in Mulwala a lot of accommodation relatively to the size of the market. And we're looking at things, the council's been looking at the All Abilities Playground in Mulwala as a major tourism drawcard, and this bike path with the ancillary things around the two towns is meant to try and support the growth in the town, but also fulfil some of the very, very long-term planning. It's not a knee-jerk reaction that someone's just plucked out of the air. So we put in a grant application authorised by the council a few months ago, and we've gotten through to the second stage. Christy Kay, Kendall and others have been working almost full-time on this grant application. It is a horrifically detailed, complex process. And so when the original work was put in, there's a certain price. It's a joint venture with Berrigan Shire and Albury City. So having got to the first point, the second point is that we need to go into detailed costings and really put in a more firm quote. So when we went back and reanalysed the master plan from about 7 or 8 years ago, the cost of the bike path component, and hopefully we've been a little conservative, I think there's 20-odd% contingency in it, is about $1 million more than it was envisaged about 8 or 9 years ago. The key issue is that because we don't have a really comprehensive long-term financial plan that's accurate, until we do our asset management reviews, the concern is it's great to have this tourism product, but can we afford to maintain it? It'd be great to have a heated pool, but can we afford to maintain it? It would be great to have a theatre, like a performing arts cinema, but they lose $400 grand a year. It'd be good to have, but can we afford it? My opinion on this is that we can't afford not to have it, because we have a really good opportunity to link two of the major towns. We have an accommodation sector in Corowa in particular that is undercapitalised. The occupancy rates are not high enough to enable them to be effectively, new carpet, new bed, new this, new that. So a lot of the accommodation would benefit from a significant upgrade to allow people to come and so on. Bike paths, I was involved in the establishment of the bike path from Tullarook to Eildon and so on. It's about $14 million. I think this man here built half the bridges with his firm along there. So this facility, if it's constructed, will bring significant tourism numbers, because we'll have a product as significant as the lake, in my opinion, in terms of supporting our tourism accommodation, both in Mulwala and here, and in terms of putting some regional support behind what Albury and Wodonga spend. So what I've said to the staff who are very concerned about can we afford it, I've said that what I'd say to the council is we have to afford it. Then we have to do, when we get our financial plan back, we then have to do the next things to make sure that we do other things as a result of the decisions that the council's made today. Because in the absence of that, we've had 20 or 30 years in hindsight, which is really easy to be critical, and I'm not trying to be, where the council has decided to keep its rates significantly low for a long, long time, and what that's meant is that the council, the new council, is not in a position, nor were the previous councils, to provide the services to the level that the community might have expected. So gravel road networks, seal road networks, all the edges on the roads are breaking down, the drainage needs work, and so on and so forth. This will bring more growth, and so if we're going to, rather than worrying about the smaller pieces that are important about tourism, we have to build product, and this is a chance for the council to build product with someone else's money, and for us to contribute just the maintenance component, I think is a no-brainer. But as I said, Ms Kay would have a different opinion, notwithstanding she's worked on this almost for 3 weeks full-time, because there's a concern that we're not financial enough to do some of these things. And for me, I think the community deserves better than a view that we can't do it because we can't afford it. I think we have to do things, support product in the community, and then make it work. The private sector does that every day of its life.
Okay, there's a recommendation by councillors. Thank you, Councillor Neagle, seconded by Councillor Law.
opportunity, Mr Mayor. This opportunity was discussed probably 9 years ago, I think, when the River Master Plan was drawn up in previous councils. And certainly the ambition to go forward to link the two towns has never been lost. And any of the councils or anybody else drives between here and Mulwala, I mean, it's one of the nicest places to drive you'd find anywhere in Australia. So that in itself is a natural process. I've often said, with tongue in cheek, Mr Mayor, that I ought to rename Mulwala Lake Mulwala, because everybody in Melbourne knows that that's where visitors go. But they seem to, a lot of them stop on the Yarrawonga side, but yeah, down the track I think Lake Mulwala is a great thing to advertise for the township of Mulwala, and it's been said before, and it's still there, the opportunity is an inland Gold Coast, and that's what you've got.
Councillor Moore.
Recreational cycling is one of the big things to be happening at the moment, and this would connect us with the mountains to the Murray cycling tracks, and I can only see great benefits coming from it.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further comments? Councillor Neal.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. There's an adage, and from personal experience, that it says, if you build it, they will come. And I think that at times council needs to be a little bit brave to take the opportunities when they present themselves, and not miss that opportunity just because it's dressed up as hard work, or in this case, financial concern. Yes, we recognise and aware of the impact that this will have on future budgets, on rates, but it's an opportunity that has broad scope to cover two of the towns across the Shire, and as the General Manager said, to have a product that will attract visitation. The tourism market is very, very competitive, and I think that we've got to the stage now that if we don't do something significant as a council to help our tourism component, then I think we're missing the point. So very happy to move the motion, and I hope that I'm pretty confident that it will provide a very positive aspect to not only just the two communities but also to the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Neal. It'd be great if you councillors could make comments so I can go and deal with my cough that haunts my asthma, getting upset by someone's makeup or perfume here today. Councillor Whitecheese, take your time with your comment, please.
Mr Mayor, I'd just like to comment and agree with Councillor Meagle on the tourism thing. But certainly we're all aware of it, and we're all aware that Corowa was probably sat back for a fair while. A couple of things that I did note in the information was the Lions Park boating facility. To my knowledge, we got a grant of $250,000 4 years ago or something, and it was shelved until this master plan and everything was properly sourced. Through Mr Mayor to the appropriate staff member, I actually went down to that boat ramp a couple of weeks ago through a request from one of the users, and it certainly has deteriorated because it is only a dirt ramp, and we're fully aware of that. Just wondering if that can be looked at, or whether it's being looked at for this summer, because really it's our only second access for the boats to access the river at this point.
Thank you, Councillor Whitecheese.
Through you, Mr Mayor. A couple of things. What the staff have done, most of this partner funds is for projects that are already in the council's budget. And part of the difficulty, for instance, the council just finished some concrete works down on Rowers Park. That was part of the matching funds. So I will answer your specific question, Councillor. So what we've done is everyone's gone through and found all the possible projects that are already in the budget now, or perhaps in next year's draft from the forward planning, and matched that so that the council's additional cash outlays are insignificant. The potential, because there's 3 councils and each of them has come back with additional grant funding required, the project scope has gone up. Discussions are still underway with the state government department and the 3 partners to make sure that we don't kill the goose that laid the golden egg by not contributing enough. So it's possible that out of this grant application process that we will need to put in the order of $200,000-300,000 cash out of next year's budget, which could be by way of another project or whatever. So we're still negotiating the finer detail of that. You're right, Councillor, that the River Street boat ramp is first of all, we need a replacement. What I suspect will happen, what will happen as a minimum for this year, is that the dirt condition, the drainage and all the ruts and all that stuff will be fixed so that it's workable and presentable. But we would, I'm not fully familiar with the exact, I can't guarantee when the government will make this available. So if we preempt some of the work, it's one of those things we juggle all the time. We can do it, we've got the money to do it, but if we do it, then we've got to find that money effectively to add up to this grant. So I think the appropriate thing, if the council's comfortable, is to make sure that we make the ramp effective and usable in really good condition, given that it's a dirt ramp, and then we actually communicate this application and the reasons why in our media strategy, so that the community gets to see that boat ramp is going to happen. It's been far too long. We're trying hard to deliver, as part of the rationale for reshaping things internally around the engineering area, is when we get a grant, so we actually just seamlessly start to spend it. It's been far too long, I understand, if that grants your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whitechurch. And I just wanted to comment along the same lines, actually, because I'm fully supportive of supporting all these projects here. But I think I'm duty bound to say that there's also some major projects and assets that would have been nice to be listed as well, in relation to lakes, waters, etc. If we're going to be committed with finances, it'd be great to have some other input as well, from varied angles of the Shire. Any further comments? If not, I'll put it. All in favour? Against? Carried.
Through you, Mr Mayor, item 6.6 relates to the council seal. The council seal is only affixed after a direction from the council. In the past, there has been the mayor and general manager required to be in the one spot to seal the legal documents that you approve and so on and so forth. The suggestion is that we amend that policy so that two councillors can do that, or the general manager and a councillor, just for expediency purposes. Sometimes we need to get a contract that would assist the mayor. The request not come from the mayor's office, is trying to be proactive.
I move the
I'll
recommendation.
move it. Councillor Law, second. Councillor Longley. Any comments? Councillor Neagle?
No,
No.
sorry, Mr. Mayor.
I'll put it. All in favour? Against? Carried.
Mr Mayor, through you, the item 6.7 is a routine governance matter that just records in the minutes that the councillors took their oath of office, which you did in this room probably 6 weeks ago now.
Okay, can I have a move of that motion? Thanks. Moved by Councillor Kennedy, seconded by Councillor Law. If there's no comments, I'll move it. I'll put it. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to the Director of Finance and Organisation Development Report.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. 7.1 is the statement of bank balances and reconciliation as at the 30th of September.
There is read, Councillor, moved by Councillor Neagle, seconded by Councillor Law. Any comments? I'll put it. All in favour? Against? Carried.
Second report, 7.2, is the schedule of investments as at the 30th of September 2017.
Someone like to move that recommendation? Councillor Law, seconder. Councillor Whitechurch. Any comments? I'll put it. All in favour? Against? Carried.
And 7.3 is just continuing to keep council updated on the progress of the completion of the annual financial statements, which are in their final throes now. Just some formatting and other things like that, and then the council's external auditors that now work for the audit office, Crowe House from Albury, they will forward it on to the audit office for their comments. So a little bit more scrutiny will be placed on it, but at that time we will also forward to our internal audit committee members as well. And the second part there is that the detailed first quarter budget report should be for the next meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Longmore, seconded by Councillor Law. Comments? I'll put it all in favour. Against, carried. Thank you very much, Kim. Now I'll ask the Director of Infrastructure and Environment for his report.
Okay. Item 8.3, Mr. Mayor. Item 8.1 is our standard report on building approvals for the month. Basically, it's just a for information report.
Thank you. Would someone like to move the notice? Entry Councillor Neagle, seconded by Councillor Longmore. Any comments? I'll put it all in favour. Against, carried.
Item 8.2 is our development applications approved under delegations for the past month. Again, for council information.
Anyone like to move that report? Moved by Councillor Law, seconded by Councillor Longley. No comments? Put it all in favour.
Aye.
Against, carried.
Item 8.3 is the return of the asset management policy to council. We've had it on public exhibition for 28 days. We haven't received any comments as such. The draft asset management policy hasn't been changed. So there's a recommendation there that we adopt the asset management policy.
Moved by Councillor Neagle, seconded by Councillor Wales. Any comments? I'll put it all in favour. Against, carried.
Item 8.4 is for the establishment of an asset management committee. Proposed to have a council asset management committee for the purpose of providing leadership in asset management for the council staff and for the community. To review and report on council's asset management policy and asset management strategy. To assist in the review of levels of service through community and stakeholder consultation, and to be able to consider the impact of that on our long-term financial plans. To establish our key principles and recommendations to council for the development of new assets. To establish key principles, make recommendation to council on disposal of existing assets. And to review and report on implications of strategic plans, master plans, etc. on the long-term financial plan and sustainability risk for council. I've got a recommendation there to form the committee and for when it should meet, etc. I'll turn it over to council.
Thank you. Can we first of all have a move, please? Moved by Councillor Law, seconded by Councillor Longley. Comments? Any councillors wish to put their hands up for that committee, or would the whole of council like to be a part of that committee as an alternative? Would someone like to make a comment? Councillor Wales.
You only need to have 5, so makes up the whole council.
I was thinking that, Councillor Wales, but I just didn't know, I didn't want to put anyone on there that didn't want to be. Can I have a show of hands who'd like to be on that committee?
Yeah, there you go.
What a great idea.
So, would we like to word that in as well as the motion we move? Or we'll have a separate one. I'll move that one first and then we'll have a separate motion. But, nothing further, I'll put that original recommendation. All in favour? Against, carried. And now we'll have a separate motion as to including the whole of council on that committee. Okay, if we're happy with that, can someone word that for us? You'd like to as well? What we could change the 5 to a 9 if you're happy with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Right. So we'll have a move in that motion. Yeah. Council's happy. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 8.5 is the DA application for the car wash at 12 Post Street, Corolla. It's been brought to council because of the number of objections, a substantial number. Information has been provided, and including the objections received. We've made a recommendation there with a range of conditions for the DA. In terms of process, the DA meets all the requirements of the zoning. The application does meet the structural requirements as well. In terms of safety, we've done our own assessments and we're satisfied with a safe location. We've made a range of recommendations there. I'll just turn that back over to council for consideration.
Can we have a move first to discuss?
No, when you're ready. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. In regard to, I'd like to speak against the opportunity.
Yeah, I'll just...
No, I know, I understand that, Councillor Law.
Yeah.
That's why I'm clarifying it.
Yeah, okay, that'll be good. Well, if I can have a mover, Councillor Longmire might move, or Councillor Longley, and seconded by Councillor Wales. And Councillor Longmire, would you like to further your comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in regard to, I've never been on council and seen so many objections. It's submissions they're called in the application, but there are objections. Everyone was an objection. And part of the dialogue that came through was the fact that it was identified back in 2012 that 12 Bow Street was changed from residential to Zone B2 local centre. Now, some of us, and that was under my watch in your position currently, and I think what I would like to do to some of the submission people that have objected to this opportunity is to apologise for taking my eye off the ball, and certainly under, I think, Councillor Law and Councillor Wales' situation at the same time, and I do not speak on their behalf. But what happened in regard to the change, and if you look at the document, there's a little insert that came around there from Walker Street, went up John Street, and the little indent went into that area that we know as Pristine Park area that belongs to the Roa line. And it went past me, I missed it. And so, in this situation, all the objections are very strong and powerful in regard to a pristine area. It links the RSL Park right through to down to the chocolate factory and all the way out on the walking path. I'm not going to go over the number of comments that have been suggested and all the different reasons, but they are very detailed, and I believe that in this situation, and some of the discussion has been about why do you need it in that area. There's plenty of other spots in Cora that could take that opportunity, and certainly if we're looking at the current car wash out Honour Avenue, perhaps I think under the zoning preferences, opportunities down in Federation Avenue going the other way of the main CBD, that may be an opportunity for light industrial in that area. Certainly there are areas in that location that have been changed and they have a history of old mechanical machinery that's been left there that would never be available and any good for residential. That could be a thing that perhaps the applicants may be able to look at. So certainly in regard to the opportunity, I certainly am against it for the reasons that I'm announcing in regard to so many submissions that have been received, and for the fact that it doesn't fit in with the area that was intended and is currently upgraded for the skate park.
Anyone else like Councillor Law?
I also wish to speak against this. The skateboard park was built in the late 1980s, and we have just moved over the past short while to spend $333,000 in that area to improve the area. It's a beautiful, pristine area that's used basically by children, young teenagers, and I don't think that this building is at all suitable for that area. It's 24 hours, 7 days a week, unmanned, lit up. There will be some noise from the separation of the oil and the water things, which will be going 24 hours a day. It's going to, I think, line up an area that will allow undesirable people to be there in the night time, through the night. I, for one, am not against the fact that we already have a car wash. I think in business, competition is a healthy thing. And so that is the one of the objections that I am not agreeing with at all. Competition is a great thing for business, but this area is a beautiful green area. We have our walking path. It's just a lovely area in the centre of town that people can come to. It's green, it's beautiful, and this would certainly take away from that.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Any further comments, councillors?
Yeah.
Councillor Kennedy.
Yeah, sorry, after being, I reckon it's a good people. I'm not going against it. There's good things there, but people investing in town, I think it's actually the council recommend that we do agree with this, and there's a lot of stringent things there. I've been through it pretty. There's so many different clauses they put on this thing to get it passed. Like, I think that there's no reason why, because across the road there's a service station. I can't see, like, I'm opposite Mrs. Councillor Law here, like, it is a beautiful area too, but there's an old train track behind it which doesn't get used anymore. Like, it could get open one day again. Like, I see the train companies who agreed to the thing, they've had a look at it, and like, I'm just saying that it's, if the council, like, I bring up DAs, I deal with DAs all the time. I'm just wondering why, only because I asked earlier this morning, that the reason why it come up to council, because usually it gets okay, because there's been so much opposition. And all these letters, there's no names on them, so how do we know it's not the same person writing the lettering? The objection. That's one thing I don't know. Like, there's so many, all the letters are there with their names deleted out. It could be the same person writing the same lettering. I don't know. That's one thing I don't know. So.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Generally with planning objections, we don't identify who the people are, but we do ensure that it's not the same person making multiple objections.
Councillor Wilde.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, there are a lot of submissions, but to me, I believe that it's another business for town. It's not a car wash, of course, a competition like Councillor Lord said. And to me, it'll blend in with the other, it's up in the corner, that little block of land there, up in the corner of the road there. And to me, it will blend in with the other, the Marshall batteries, you've got Clontarf across the road. And I look forward to this, unfortunately.
Thank you, Councillor Wilde. Any further comments? If not, Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's pros and cons. I have some concern with increased vehicle traffic so close to the skate park, which we have just agreed to further invest in. By the same token, the land is within the zone, notwithstanding Councillor Longmire's comments. It's within the zone. Business development is something that council probably should always consider favourably if the town is to grow. If we always have what we've always got, we're never going to move ahead. So I just wanted to ask the Director of Engineering and Environment if the permit is as per the drawings, or whether there is any difference to crossing over Redlands Road or over Bow Street, and if there was any clause regarding mitigating the traffic and so adjacent to the car park.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. When I've looked at the plans and considered what's being presented by the developer, with the entry, purely an entry/exit up into in John Street, there is sufficient distance from the corner for a couple of cars to park should the business become that busy that they can't access the site. That will not impact on the traffic movement in that area, as the street's sufficient width there to actually cater for parking. Also in Bow Street, in terms of being an entry/exit, again, the entry/exit area is located as far back as we can physically push it, doing it again for safety at the intersection. There's that's a 1.5 metre high fence on the boundary, which allows visibility generally over the fence for pedestrians, etc. We can do, council does have the option of making recommendations as to whether it permits an entry off Bow Street or not. In terms of management of the site, it doesn't really have a large impact as to how you manage that area. If it is an entry/exit in Bow Street, again, there's sufficient width there for cars to be able to pull across to the side, not impede traffic, not impact on pedestrians in that space. So I believe, as it stands, traffic management wise, there's no reason for alteration of what we have presented to us.
Any further councillors? Councillor Longmire?
Write a reply.
Can I say one point? Mr. Mayor, sometimes when a person goes to wash their car and they occupy other cars, I'll do it up and come back later on. I know when I'd wash my dog, well, the dog washes, if you've got a dog there, well, I'll go dry and come back when it's vacant. So sometimes that will happen. I'll come back and wash their car when it's vacant too. Small point, but it's irrelevant.
Thank you,
I think, can I ask a point of clarity to the Director of Infrastructure and Environment in regard to the opportunity for the water treatment process for a car wash? That would apply in the circumstances, wouldn't it not?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. In terms of water treatment for what's leaving the site, all the washdown water has to be captured. It has to be filtered and put through grease traps, oil traps, to ensure that what comes out of that in terms of grey water and put into our system is suitable.
So could I just ask clarity on that? Is that a system of water treatment?
It's minor treatment.
But it is a system of
Yes.
water treatment?
Yes.
Thank you. Because why I'm identifying that, if you go under the prohibition of the local Corowa Local Environment Plan 2012, Zone B2 Local Centre, one of the prohibitions is water recycling facilities. So how does it pass? As you've identified, it is a type of recycling.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, they're not intending to recycle water on the site. They're intending to filter the water before it passes through to the council facilities.
I ask you, Mr. Mayor, you able to give a judgment on that, or the General Manager, because I'm confused. I see it as under the LEP, it definitely says water recycling facilities and water treatment facilities are prohibited. And yet here we have a recommendation from the officer to say it's okay.
Councillor Kennedy.
Speaking from experience, I'm actually building the new Toyota dealership in Yarrawonga, and it's got the washdown bays in it, and it's not actually a treatment plant, it's actually called a triple interceptor, which comes through and catches all the grease, dirt, and you've got to get them pumped out later on. So you're not actually treating the water on site, then the water keeps flowing through. So it costs about, the one we're putting in is about $20,000 because they wash down the grease and everything, and that's what catches all the grease and it keeps going through that. So it's not actually treating the water on site, it's called a triple interceptor. So, yeah.
Thank you. Any further comment? Councillor Thomas. Councillor Thomas.
More of a clarification. So when you get an application like this that comes in, and obviously we're in a situation where 43 people have put a submission in regards to this proposal, and you've listed the the public consultation feedback, you've listed that. So is that then reflected in these, the 1 to 24? Is that how you get from A to B?
I might have to field that question. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Thomas, the council adopts its planning scheme, and then land within the planning scheme is zoned for certain purposes. And it's not the council's role to take note of the number of objections, because often the community will be very adept at, for instance, a petition that might have 1,000 signed signatures on the same piece of paper. So the number of submissions and the fact that people object is not the space that the council is operating in. The space that the council is operating in is, you've got a legally binding enforcement position, and then you, as a council and together, you need to take into account the zoning and the ability of the applicant to do that within his zoning. So if the applicant, and then you need to take into account the objections and treat those seriously based on their merit, not on the fact that they've occurred, but are they substantial, and do you believe that they have weight? So, for instance, things like noise, impact on parking in Bow Street, and so on and so forth. If you, as a council, were to feel that those objections were valid, then that would be a reason. If you wanted to vote against it, you might say, the council could say that if the motion is not accepted, then the council would be in a position to refuse. Why would you refuse? And you need to have grounds for refusal, and simply saying that the 43 people objected is not a ground that would do anything except embarrass the council in the Land and Environment Court. You'd need to be able to say things like the application be refused due to noise concerns, odour, pedestrian safety, some of the planning type reasons and what the officers are advising the council, it's clearly in the council's court as to what it does with the recommendations of the officers. As I've said, the council staff have worked as hard as possible to try and mitigate as many of the concerns that have been raised. Definitely that will be taken into account. If the officers can't take into account every single objection, because that would mitigate their professional obligation to administer fearlessly, I suppose, your planning scheme as a council. But the officers try to put in place reasonable and, as appropriate, strong recommendations to mitigate the negative effects of any particular application that might occur. It's not a matter for this planning issue, permit, in terms of the location of the council. If I move into a different space, the council does have some activity associated with the skateboard ramp. My view there is that it's quite possible that the skateboard ramp could even be relocated and built more effectively in a different location, or moved a bit further along and so on. That's a separate exercise, because the skateboard ramp design and so on can be moderated to mitigate certain things. This is a planning application. It's not much to do with council's future works program. It's got to do with the legally binding planning scheme. Council is operating in the position where it has to make a decision about, do we believe that the objections that are raised have weight from a planning point of view. Sometimes, even if the council believes that every person in the whole municipality decided that something was objectionable, the council could override that, could agree with that, and systematically lose like clockwork in the Land and Environment Court. There are some councils in metropolitan Melbourne and Sydney that spend $2 to $3 million a year fighting objections in the planning in VCAT or the Land and Environment Court, because they systematically go, although our planning scheme says that people can buy land and do these things in this location, the council goes, but we don't like it because the community is really cross about it, so we're going to support the community, and then they spend a whole lot of ratepayers' funds, City of Yarra, millions and millions and millions of dollars going. Notwithstanding what our planning scheme says, notwithstanding what the state says about what you can do in this location, for whatever reasons we don't like it, so we're not going to agree, so we'll just throw some money in every month, maybe a couple $100,000 a month or more, like clockwork. So in a situation where an applicant feels they have a legitimate ability to do something and the council says no, their next redress is to the Land and Environment Court. In an application like this, I suspect that isn't a risk to the council, but that's sort of a space, I suppose.
All right, councillors, Councillor Meagle, we'll just have a couple more and we'll move on and I'll put this out.
Just another quick question for the Director, if I may, please, Mr Mayor. The plan, as I see it, shows dual access, entry and exit on both of the, on two locations. And I noticed in item number 20 as part of the conditions that the vehicle movements must be submitted to arrange movement in one way. So could I just have a clarification as to where you see that going, please?
Through you, Mr Mayor. The aim of the condition is to actually take away what they've shown as their application, so that they do actually have movement one way into the site, one way out of the site, so there is no confusion in anybody's mind as to where you should be looking.
And, sorry, so you would be entry through John and exit through Bo, or is that up to the applicant?
We would discuss that with the developer as to which way is the most appropriate for that site to work. But the aim would be one entry, one exit.
Yeah. My concern, the reason for raising that, my concern is that Bow Street's the much busier street, and crossing over Bow Street to enter, especially at peak times when Riverlea is, people are coming in, and high schools and buses and all the rest of it, there can be a whole heap of traffic congestion on Bow Street at certain times of the day. So, wondering, Mr Mayor, if I could move an amendment to include that as a condition of accepting the recommendation that the traffic be designed to enter from John Street an exit from Bow Street in order to mitigate that crossing over of Bow Street and hence avoiding traffic congestion.
Do we have a second for that motion? Their amendment,
Question of clarity, Mr Mayor. Mr General Manager, were we able to adjust the proposal as a application for a DA in the circumstances amendment?
Through you, Mr Mayor, it's perfectly within Council's rights to refuse the application with reasons, to approve the application as it's done, or to approve the application as the Council sees fit to add an additional condition, yes.
Okay.
As I say, my concern is for the young people who use the skate park. Any overspray that may go onto the skate ramps will be dangerous for the scooters and the skateboards. But also, that is going to be the only business in that area. There are businesses across the road, but they are not 24 hour a day, 7 day a week, lit up all night businesses. It must certainly be a light pollution for people who live in and around that area, as well as the noise pollution. But my main concern is the young people who use that skateboard area there, that it's going to be extremely dangerous. The extra vehicles on that road will be incredible.
Councillor Long.
Yes. Mr Mayor, I spent a couple of hours on site the other day reading all the documents while I was there, reading the recommendation. There is a blank wall between his property and the so you won't get overspray, you won't get over lighting is not an issue. I've confirmed, I looked at everything there, I was satisfied myself that this particular project meets the requirements of Council.
All right, councillors, we've probably heard enough for and against now. It's time to make a decision, so if you could clearly raise your hand for the amended motion, being what Councillor Nichols added. Okay, so I'll put the motion. All in favour?
This amendment.
Of the amendment. We had a seconder for that we should have.
Okay.
So it's the amended motion, for vote.
The traffic, yeah.
All in favour of the project? We've got one in favour of the
amendment or
yes.
the whole motion?
The amendment first.
The amendment first, yes.
Against? Carried. It becomes a motion now, so we're voting on that. That is the motion. So I'm going to put the motion. All in favour of the motion? Okay, so we've got 5, 3.
Councillors, we
Against?
need to put the names, Mr Mayor, so
Yeah,
okay.
okay.
Their hands up.
Okay, so all in favour, sorry, just for recording, we've got Councillor Wales, Councillor Thomas, Councillor Meagle, Councillor Longley and Councillor Kennedy. And against was Councillor Longwire and Councillor Law. Motion's carried. Sorry, just one. Councillor Watcher. Oh, yeah, we'll just give Councillor Watcher and Paul. Okay. That was it. No items of notice of motion, reports from the committee, no items there. Sorry, thank you. Councillor Law, you've got a report?
Councillor Meagle and myself have been on a 10-day trip to Japan with our Miki City Sister Exchange program. It proved a very successful trip. I believe that next meeting, Wendy Thompson, who is the council officer in charge of this trip, would like some of the children to come to council and present to you. But at this stage, I would like to present to you the agreements that we made with Mickey City, the mutual agreement for sister city affiliation between the Federation Council and Mickey City, and an agreement for the establishment of a sister city affiliation between the Federation Council and Mickey City. I was very pleased to be able to represent you, Mr. Mayor, at this function, and it's something that I think that Council does well, and I hope it continues on to the future. That the friendships that we gain through the councils and through the people are amazing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor, and I believe you deserve a round of applause.
Oh, not quite.
Yeah, so inwards correspondence, recurring council action. Councillor Lee.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just to back up what Councillor Law said, hopefully we'll be able to put a more detailed report to Council at the next meeting in conjunction with the students that went. I think it was stated that over the 20 years we've had over 100 students and 46 adults and 13 exchanges, which is a tremendous effort for the young people especially to have the opportunity to visit another culture or another country, experience another culture, and that should not be lost. And I'd very much like to endorse Councillor Law's comments. It was a very successful trip. I really trust that it can continue for the benefit of our younger people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mead. Look, like I say, we'll all look forward to that, the children coming along to the next council meeting to address it. Thanks very much. So now we'll move on. If there's no more reports, any correspondence?
Mr. Mayor, the Corowa swimming pool has been one of those issues that has a lot of community interest. Just to give the council an update, first of all, there's a letter from a member of the public which has been tabled today. Over the last 6 months or so, the council, so the administrator asked that when looking at the Corowa swimming pool, that there be some additional work done to do with the Corowa Caravan Park, because there have been different views in the community about what the benefits would be of having a different footprint for the caravan park, so that the presentation of the Corowa town entry was substantially different. There have been issues over the years with the operation of that park where the council is systematically placing people under falling gum tree limbs, which has almost caused death on one occasion, and I mean that literally. Another 2 inches below and the woman would have been definitely dead. She had a bough approaching a foot thick on her nose. It was just lucky that the tree fell. So what we've done over the last 6 months is put the council in a position of, one, considering the best, considering all the issues in the broadest context. One of those issues is the lease timing or not of the caravan park. The opportunity to look at the use of the foreshore for whatever purposes. There's no intent on the officer's part to do anything except look diligently at all of the options, because the lease of the caravan park expires mid-year next year, and quite soon the council will have before it, probably in a forum, an opportunity to look at the work that's just been completed. And basically the work that's been completed leaves a spot for the swimming pool. Whatever the council's option is that it wishes to pursue, the pool, depending on the council's direction, will go where the pool goes. But it looks at, the report is not about the pool only, it looks at the overall viability and impact of the caravan park, its layout, and takes into account the issues I've mentioned around safety, income to support whatever pool the council decides to have, because the current caravan park lease covers the cost of operating of the Corowa swimming pool, and the council can't afford to take too many decisions that a typical outdoor swimming pool will cost $120,000 to run. Typical indoor one around about $350 to $400. So the council has to be very mindful as it works through its 10-year financial plan about what it can afford, as we talked about earlier with relation to a different issue. So this letter is of interest, but the overall bigger picture is looking at all the issues, caravan park, swimming pool and so on. So that'll be, I suggest the council note this letter and thank the person for their correspondence, and that the council consider it in conjunction with a comprehensive report which will be made available, and we'll bring the consultant to deal with the council and fully brief you on all the options and hear what you've got to say, and go away and do any work that we're directed to do to review the work and so on.
Absolutely, thank you, Mr. General Manager. I look forward to that. So we'd like a motion tonight. Councillor would like to move that. Councillor Kennedy, and seconded by Councillor Law. All in favour? Against? Carried. There's nothing confidential, so I now declare the meeting closed.